The laundromat smelled like warm detergent and damp socks, a kind of comfort that settled into my bones every Tuesday night. I was 27, sitting on the plastic chair that wobbled under my weight, scrolling through my phone, texts I'd typed out but never sent, mostly to my ex, who hadn't replied in months. The hum of the dryers was loud enough to drown out the ache in my chest, but not quite. I glanced up when the door chimed, and there she was, Mrs. Callahan, my friend Jake's mom, mid-40s, maybe older, carrying a canvas laundry bag slung over one shoulder. Her hair was loose, dark with streaks of gray she didn't bother hiding, and her glasses slipped down her nose as she wrestled the bag onto a table. "Hey, Ethan," she said, her voice low, like she was used to keeping things quiet. She remembered my name, same as she remembered I always took the third dryer from the left. I nodded, my throat catching for no good reason. "Hey, Mrs. See, I hated how my voice sounded, too eager, like a kid trying to impress. She didn't look up, just started sorting her clothes, whites, darks, a stray red sock she held up and frowned at, like it had betrayed her. I watched her hands, quick but careful, the way her fingers brushed the fabric. I looked away fast, pretending to check my phone, but my eyes flicked back when she laughed softly. "You're gonna wear that screen out, staring like that," she said, not looking at me. My face burned, and I shoved my phone in my pocket, folding the corner of a napkin I'd grabbed from the coffee shop earlier. It was already fraying. "Long day?" I asked, because silence felt worse. She pushed her glasses up, her eyes catching mine for a second, brown, steady, like they could see straight through my small talk. "Long week," she said, then paused, like she was deciding whether to keep going. "Jake's been." "Jake. You know." I did. Jake was my best friend, but he was a mess lately, partying too hard, calling his mom at 2 a.m. for bail money. I'd seen her pick up the pieces, quiet, no complaints. We didn't talk much after that. She loaded her machine, and I watched the way her shoulders tensed when a button stuck. I got up, offered to help, my fingers brushing hers when I pressed the start button. She didn't pull away, just said, "Thanks," soft, like it cost her something. The air felt heavier, the dryers hummed too loud now. I sat back down, my hands still, my heart doing something I didn't want to name. She sat 2 chairs away, reading a paperback with a cracked spine. I wanted to ask what it was, but my mouth wouldn't move. Instead, I noticed the way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, then untucked it, like she couldn't decide how to be. I wondered if she was lonely too, if that's why she came here late, same as me. My phone buzzed, a text from Jake, some dumb meme. I ignored it, my eyes on her hands again, the way they turned the page so carefully. When her machine beeped, she stood, and I felt the moment slipping. "See you next Tuesday," I said, my voice too quiet, like I was asking something bigger. She smiled, just a little, and said, "Maybe." Then she was gone, the door chiming behind her. My phone buzzed again, her name, a text, "Forgot my detergent. Can you grab it?" I stared at the words, my pulse loud in my ears, wondering why it felt like more than a favor that I grabbed the detergent bottle from the counter where she'd left it, the plastic cool against my palm, and headed out into the night. The street was quiet, just the distant hum of traffic and the flicker of a street lamp. Her place was only a few blocks away, Jake's old house, the one I'd crashed at 100 times in college. I hadn't been there since his dad left, 5 years ago. Divorce hit hard, Jake said once, but he never elaborated. I tried not to think about that as I walked, my sneakers scuffing the sidewalk. When I knocked, the door opened quicker than I expected. She stood there in the same sweater, her glasses perched on her head now, holding back her hair. "Ethan," she said, like she was surprised, even though she'd texted. Her eyes flicked to the bottle in my hand, then back to my face. "You didn't have to, come in, it's cold out." The living room hadn't changed much, same faded couch, bookshelves crammed with paperbacks and photos of Jake as a kid. I handed her the detergent, our fingers brushing again, and I felt that same pull, like static. She set it on the coffee table and gestured to the kitchen. "Tea." "I just boiled water." I nodded, even though I wasn't thirsty, and followed her. She poured 2 mugs, the steam curling up, and we sat at the small table by the window. Silence stretched, the clock ticking on the wall too loud. I stared into my tea, watching the bag steep, darker by the second. "Thanks for this," she said finally, her voice soft. Jake's been distant. "It's nice to have someone drop by." She stirred her tea slowly, the spoon clinking against the mug. I swallowed, my throat tight. "Yeah, he's been busy. Work stuff." A lie, but she knew. Her eyes met mine, steady, and for a second, I imagined what it would be like to reach across the table, to say something real. But she was Jake's mom, older, divorced, worlds away from my mess of a life. What was I doing here? We sat like that, the tea cooling untouched. She reached for her mug, then paused, her fingers lingering near mine on the table. Not a touch, but close enough that the air between us felt charged. Her gaze softened, holding mine a beat too long, and I wondered if she felt it too, the risk, the pull, the quiet storm building. The kitchen felt smaller now, the air thick with something unsaid. "Mrs. Callahan, Ellen," she'd told me to call her last week, but it still felt wrong, leaned back in her chair, her fingers tracing the rim of her mug. I watched the motion, hypnotic, my hands frozen around my own cup. I wanted to say something, anything, but my thoughts were a mess. What did she see when she looked at me? Jake's friend, some kid who couldn't get his life together. Or, something else. "You don't have to keep coming to the laundromat, you know," she said, her voice quiet, almost teasing, but her eyes were serious, searching. "Your apartment's got a washer, doesn't it?" I shifted, my knee bumping the table leg, the sound sharp in the silence. "Yeah, but, it's loud. And I like the routine." A half-truth. I liked seeing her. She nodded, like she understood more than I'd said. Her hand stilled on the mug, and she looked out the window, where the street lamp cast shadows across the curtains. "I used to hate routines," she said, barely above a whisper. "After the divorce. I thought they'd trap me. But now, they're all I've got." Her voice caught, just for a second, and my chest tightened. I wanted to ask about it, about her, but the words stuck. The front door creaked open, and we both froze. Jake's voice called out, "Ma. You home?" My stomach dropped. Ellen's eyes flicked to mine, wide, then softened into something I couldn't read. She stood, smoothing her sweater, and called back, "In here." I pushed my chair back, the scrape too loud, my hands clammy. Jake wandered in, hoodie rumpled, eyes bloodshot. "Ethan. What are you doing here?" His tone was light, but his gaze darted between us. "Dropped off her detergent," I said, too fast, holding up the bottle like evidence. Ellen nodded, her face calm, but her fingers twisted the hem of her sleeve. Jake shrugged, grabbing a beer from the fridge. "Cool. You staying?" I shook my head, muttering something about work tomorrow. Ellen walked me to the door, her steps slow, deliberate. At the threshold, the night air cool against my face, she stopped me with a look. "Thanks, Ethan," she said, her voice low, like a secret. Her hand brushed my arm, light, accidental, or maybe not. My breath caught, and for a moment, I saw it, leaning in, closing the gap, her lips so close I could feel the warmth. Her eyes held mine, steady, questioning, and I almost said it, "I keep coming back for you." But Jake's laugh echoed from the kitchen, and she stepped back, her hand falling away. The door clicked shut behind me, and I stood there, heart pounding, the almost of it burning in my chest. That we met at the park the next evening, her idea, texted late after Jake left her place. "Need some air. Want to walk?" I didn't hesitate, though I should've. The park was quiet, the kind of dusk where the sky's too heavy, like it's holding its breath. Ellen sat on a bench, her scarf loose around her neck, hands tucked into her coat pockets. I sat beside her, leaving a careful gap, my fingers picking at the frayed edge of my jacket. "You didn't have to come," she said, not looking at me, her voice soft but edged with something sharp. "Guilt, maybe." I shrugged, staring at the ground, where a leaf skittered across the path. "Wanted to." My voice sounded too honest, and I winced internally. What was I doing? She was Jake's mom. Divorced, sure, but still. Jake would lose it. I pictured his face, that half-drunk squint from last night, the way he'd looked at us. She shifted, her knee closer now, not touching but near enough to notice. I don't know why I keep letting you in," she said, her words halting, like she was pulling them up from somewhere deep. "It's not right. You're his friend." Her fingers tightened around her scarf, and I saw it, the crack in her calm, the fear of what this was becoming. I wanted to reach out, to steady her, but my hand stayed still, heavy with my own doubts. "I don't either," I said, my voice barely there. "But I can't stop thinking about you." The words slipped out, raw, and I froze, my pulse loud in my ears. Her breath hitched, and she turned to me, eyes wide, unguarded for the first time. The gap between us felt smaller, the air charged like it had been in her kitchen. I could lean in, close it, feel her breath against my skin. Her lips parted, like she might speak, but nothing came. A dog barked nearby, sharp, breaking the spell. She blinked, pulling her scarf tighter, her shoulders hunching. "We can't," she whispered, more to herself than me. But her hand moved, slow, resting on the bench, inches from mine. Not touching, but close enough to feel the warmth. I stared at it, my chest tight, knowing we were teetering on something we couldn't take back. Tuesday night came, and the laundromat was too quiet. The third dryer from the left sat idle, my clothes spinning in the one next to it. Ellen didn't show. I sat there, phone in hand, thumb hovering over her name. No text, no call, just silence. I'd seen her last week, on that bench, her eyes holding mine like she wanted to say something but couldn't. Now, nothing. My chest ached, a mix of hope and dread, like I'd misread everything. I kept replaying her words, "It's not right. You're his friend." But there was more she hadn't said. Jake mentioned once, half drunk, that she'd dated someone after the divorce, a guy who left when things got serious. "She's got trust issues," he'd said, laughing it off. I hadn't thought much of it then, but now it gnawed at me. Was that why she pulled back? Or was it just me, too young, too close to her son? I walked to her street after the dryers stopped, my bag slung over my shoulder, the night air sharp. Her house was dark, curtains drawn tight. I stood across the road, staring at the window where we'd sat with our tea. I wanted to knock, to ask why she didn't come, but my feet wouldn't move. What if she was done with this, with me? What if Jake was inside, asking questions I couldn't answer? My phone glowed in my hand. I typed, "Missed you at the laundromat." My thumb hovered over send, heart pounding, but I deleted it, letter by letter. The street lamp flickered, and I turned away, the weight of her absence heavier than my bag. The seat next to me would stay empty tonight. That I stood at her doorstep again, uninvited, my knuckles hesitating before knocking. It was late, the kind of hour where the world feels too still. Last night's unsent text burned in my mind, and I couldn't wait another week for answers. The door opened, and Ellen stood there, her hair loose, no glasses, her eyes tired but soft. "Ethan," she said, not a question, just my name, like she'd been expecting me. She stepped aside, and I followed her into the kitchen. The same table, same mugs, but no tea this time. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed, her fingers gripping her sleeves. I stood by the table, my hands shoved in my pockets, the clock ticking louder than it should. "You didn't come," I said, my voice low, cracking on the last word. She looked down, her lips pressing tight, like she was holding something in. "I couldn't," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "I saw you with Jake yesterday, outside the coffee shop. You were laughing, like you were kids again." Her eyes met mine, raw, unguarded. "I can't do this to him. To you." My chest tightened, guilt and longing twisting together. I wanted to argue, to say Jake wouldn't care, but I knew better. He'd hate me. I'd lose him. "I'm not a kid," I said, stepping closer, my voice steadier than I felt. "I know what this is, Ellen. I know it's messy, but I stopped, the words too heavy, my hands clenching in my pockets. Her breath hitched, and she uncrossed her arms, her fingers brushing the counter's edge, like she needed something to hold on to. "You're young," she said, not unkindly, but it stung. "You don't know what it's like to lose everything twice." Her voice broke, and I saw it, the weight of her divorce, the guy who left, the years of holding it together for Jake. I wanted to fix it, to take it away, but all I had was this moment. "I don't care," I said, quieter now, my feet closing the gap between us. "I see you, Ellen. Not Jake's mom, not someone's ex. You." Her eyes widened, and for a second, I thought she'd pull away again. But she didn't. She stepped forward, just enough, her hand reaching out, fingers grazing mine. The touch was light, but it felt like everything, hope, fear, the edge of something real. "Okay," she whispered, her voice trembling, a small smile breaking through. It wasn't a promise, but it was enough, her hand still in mine, warm and steady in the quiet kitchen. Months slipped by, slow and careful, like we were learning to walk on new ground. The laundromat wasn't our place anymore. I started washing my clothes at Ellen's, the hum of her old machine softer than the third dryer from the left. Jake took it better than I thought, anger at first, a few weeks of silence, but he came around, his laugh echoing in the coffee shop one morning, 8:47 a.m., when he clapped me on the shoulder and said, "Just don't hurt her, man." It wasn't approval, but it was enough that we found a rhythm, Ellen and I, in her kitchen most evenings. She'd make tea, I'd bring black coffee from the shop down the street, and we'd sit at that same table, the clock ticking softer now, like it knew we needed the quiet. No grand gestures, no promises we couldn't keep, just small moments, earned. Her hand brushing mine when she passed the sugar, her smile when I teased her about her cracked spine paperbacks. Life wasn't perfect, she still worried about Jake, and I still second-guessed myself, wondering if I was enough. But it was better, warmer, like the steam curling off our mugs. One evening, we sat on the park bench again, the same one from that heavy dusk months ago. Her scarf was looser now, her hands less guarded, resting on her lap. I watched a leaf skitter across the path, same as before, but this time I didn't feel the weight of what might go wrong. "You still think routines trap you?" I asked, my voice light, but my eyes on her. She laughed, soft, her fingers finding mine on the bench, no hesitation this time. "Not this one," she said, her gaze steady, warm. We sat there, the sky lighter than it had been, the world a little less heavy. I thought of the laundromat, the unsent texts, the almost moments we'd survived. She squeezed my hand, just once, and I knew she was thinking of them too, the quiet steps that brought us here, to a place only we'd understand.